When you think of a bad season, Manchester United not reaching the top 5 might come to mind. Spurs finishing 15th maybe. Or Bayern Munich not winning any trophies. But those seasons looks like a privilege when you look at Derby County at 2007. A team that their only achievements were bad ones. Players that played this season literally had anxiety. Today we're going to take a deep dive at the worst season in the Premier League history.
Don't forget to subscribe.
So how did Derby County even found themselves in the Prem? The season before, Derby were playing in the Championship. 4 points behind Sunderland and 2 points behind Birmingham. That promised them the place in the playoffs. And with a 1-0 win over West Brom, Derby locked their place in the Premier League. The summer of 2007 should have been about survival, experience, depth, players who already fought for relegation battles. Instead, Derby County went shopping like a championship club and didn't really know what to buy. They spent around 25 million, which at the time was a decent budget. But almost every signing was a gamble. Their record signing, Robert Henshaw, who scored 1 goal in 25 appearances. They brought Kenny Miller, who had already failed in the Premier League with Wolves. Cloudy Davies, Andy Todd, Robbie Savage. Experienced names, but players who were already past their prime or had been in a relegation before. Then there were the foreign signings. Players like Emmanuel Villa and Gillis Barnes. Talented, yes, but thrown into a league that punished every mistake instantly. But Derby problems didn't start on the pitch. They started on the touchline. Billy Davies was the manager who got Derby County promoted, against expectations, against the odds. But just 2 months into the Premier League, he was gone. Officially, it was a mutual decision. In reality, it was a breakdown. Davies wanted more control over the transfers, the board wanted cheaper options. And as the results got worse, the relationship collapsed. Derby had played 6 league games. They had 1 point, and suddenly, the man who built the promotion team was walking away before September was even over. The signs were there before. In a very weird interview by Billy Davies.
Well, it's a dream come true, isn't it, you know? We've been underdogs for most of the games. We started way behind many people. Fantastic effort from these players. Great credit to everyone in the football club. It's an unbelievable achievement.
And for you, a Premiership manager.
Well, we'll enjoy the night. Let me just... Gadsby, was it?
Well, joy bubbling up.
And by the end of October, Derby managed to get barely 5 points, which is already more than half of what they were going to get by the end of the season. Big defeats like 4-0 at Spurs, 6-0 at Liverpool, and 5-0 at Arsenal, all by the end of September, show how this season was going to roll. By January, relegation wasn't official, but survival already felt impossible. Derby went into a winter window, bottom of the league, miles behind everyone. And this was the moment that usually saves struggling teams, reinforcements, experience, a reset. But January didn't bring a rescue. It brought confirmation. The club didn't spend big. They didn't take risks. Most moves were short-term loans and depth signings. Laurent Robert, a loan. Roy Carroll, free transfer. Miles Addison, young depth option. And those players weren't gonna give you wins. The club had already accepted the outcome. Once survival was off the table, every match became a countdown. Derby weren't just losing games anymore. They were setting benchmarks, the kind no club ever wants. Week after week, the numbers got worse. They struggled to reach 10 points, then 11, and then 12. Goals were rare. Clean sheets were impossible, and defeats started coming with expectation, not shock. By March, Derby had won just 1 league game. Opponents rotated their squad against them. Manager rested key players. Derby became a fixture that clubs saw as safe, and the players felt it. Interviews became cautious. Body language changed. Mistakes weren't met by anger, just silence. By the time the season ended, the numbers were brutal. 11 points, the lowest in the Premier League history. 1 win all seasons. Just 29 goals scored and 89 goals conceded. 60 goal difference. But the most damaging record wasn't statistical, it was reputational. Derby County weren't remembered as unlucky, or underfunded, or inexperienced. They become the reference point. Every bad team since has been compared to them. Not as bad as Derby. That phrase still exists, almost 2 decades later. And that's the real legacy of that season. Paul Joel, the manager who replaced Billy Davies, said, "My career never really recovered from going to Derby County after getting relegated with Derby only in March. What made Derby's season even darker is what it did to the players themselves. Because this wasn't just a bad year on paper, it followed people. Several players admitted later that season affected their confidence for years. Some never fully recovered. Take Robbie Savage, for example, an experienced Premier League player, used to pressure, noise, criticism. Even he described that season as a mentally exhausting season, a campaign where losing became a routine. Kenny Miller, signed to score goals, left that summer. His Premier League reputation never recovered, despite having solid careers elsewhere. Robert Earnshaw, Derby's record signing, managed just 1 goal. He went on to score again, but never escaped being linked to that season. For young players, it was even worse. Some were thrown into the Premier League too early, in a team with no protection and no belief. Instead of developing, they were exposed. Careers stalled, loans followed, some quietly disappeared down the leagues. And then there were the players who actually rebuilt themselves. A few left Derby and found success elsewhere, from the spotlight, proving that the problem wasn't always talent, it was context, timing, environment. But once your name is attached to the worst team in the Premier League history, that label sticks. Even today, when players from that squad are mentioned, the first thing that comes to mind isn't their career before or after. It's 2007. And that might be the hardest part of them all, because football forgets most bad seasons. But this one, it followed everyone. When we think about bad season, we usually talk about disappointments. But Derby County 2007-8 wasn't disappointment, it was isolation. A team out of depth, out of belief, and out of time. Other clubs failed and bounced back. Derby failed so completely that they became the measuring stick of failure. Not because they didn't care, not because they didn't try, but because everything went wrong at the same time. And that's why this season still matters. Because every time a team struggles, every time a club looks lost in the Premier League, one sentence always comes up: at least they're not bad as Derby. If you enjoyed this deep dive into football's darkest season, make sure to subscribe. More stories, more context, and more moments football will never forget are coming soon.